a lot of people do. A lot of people do know. A lot of people, white people, black people, do know that the people in America, both America, South and North America, are descendants of the true Hebrews. A lot of people do realize this in Israel. But Israel is such a country that everything is so political that unfortunately not a lot of people give importance to this fact. And when you approach a white man and you tell him, you know what, I can prove you that the Hebrews were people of color and you are not. So who are you? Usually he gonna talk to you about Holocaust and all stuff like this, and he basically gonna say that I know that you're right, but I don't care because my great parents have been through the Holocaust and I feel safe here. I've been struggling from anti-Semitism and I don't want to struggle, so I feel safe here and I feel good here. This is the answer you're gonna.
Peter, wait a minute. Let's run this back. So you're telling me that many in Israel know this fact, and yet you would tell them, brother, who are you? You know you're not the real children of the Bible. And they will simply say, I know that I'm not, but I don't care. But because I have all of these perks and I have all of these benefits, that I would rather keep the benefits and keep the lie hidden. Are you telling me that, Peter?
I'm telling you that a lot of people do know, and they say we are all mixed. They use excuses. They say we are all mixed. You can tell. Do you think in Greek, ancient Greeks live in Greece? Do you think you can find Babylonians in Iraq right now? Do you think you can find Persians in Iran right now? No, they're all mixed with the Arabs, and so are we. So what? I belong here. I like it here. I don't want another Holocaust. I feel afraid to be out of Israel because maybe another Holocaust is gonna happen to me, and I belong here and I don't care about what you're saying. This is what the answer you may hear, and a lot of people do know about the truth that the people were the Hebrews were people of color, and their descendants might be found in America today.
So what do you believe?
I've seen when black people claim that the ancient Hebrews and Jews were black people and Jesus was not a white man. Many white people come across and say, okay, Jesus was not a white man, but he wasn't a black person either, because he was from the Middle East, and therefore, according to them, he must have looked like Arabs. But this is a fallacy. Just because the modern population of a region looks like X doesn't mean that the ancient inhabitants of that region looked also like X. For example, look at Australia. Are white Australians descended from the ancient Aborigines? Or are white Mexicans descended from the ancient Mayans? Of course not. The Middle East is the most melting pot region of the world. There are black, white, brown, Indian-looking and Mongol-looking people in this region, all of whom claim to be native and indigenous to this region. And for example, in Arabs, there are black, white, and mixed, the so-called brown Arabs, all of whom claim to be the real Arabs. But which of them is the real Arab? The black one, the white one, or the brown one? The same goes for Iran. There are many different ethnic groups in Iran. There are Mongoloid-looking Turkmens, there are Indian-looking Baluch, there are native blacks, there are white-looking Turks, there are mixed-looking Kurds and Lurs. Which of them is the true Iranian? And unlike what the believers of the Indo-European hoax claim, the white-looking people in this region are not descended from the ancient mythical Indo-Europeans. These people are mostly Turks or descended from Turks. For example, here in Iran, up to 40% of people are Turks, and I don't know how many of them are descended from Turks, meaning are related to Turks. And the most white-speaking people of Iran are mostly Turks, but there are also Russian, Georgian, and Armenian people too living in this region. And we all know that Turks are not an indigenous people to this region. They came from southern Russia and the Central Asia in recent centuries, and they cannot be an indigenous people to this region. The ancient inhabitants of the ancient peoples of the Middle East were all different types of black people, different groups of black
recent
people.
work, if you read the hybrid report very attentively, you'll have to go to the footnotes. You will see there's got a lot of evidence produced for black Jewish communities in different parts of West Africa, which are not sort of based upon a particular reading of tribal history, let's put it like that, but are based on fairly hard historical fact. And this hard historical fact is the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and from Portugal at the end of the 15th century, subsequent to which a lot of Jews settled, first of all, in northwest Africa, places like Senegal, in the islands, which I'm sure you know about, Saint Tomé and Principe.
Yes, sir.
Principally. And then, less known, along the coast of Guinea, so that in the middle of the 16th century, 1560 to be precise, the Portuguese Archbishop of Goa in India proclaimed that Judaism was a kind of horrible illness which has killed millions of people throughout history, and the result of being Jewish was to be covered in shame, to fail in everything, even among the black Jews of Guinea. So, in other words, the existence of Jews in the western part of Africa was absolutely accepted at the time by the likes of the Portuguese Archbishop of Goa. And then travelers, Mungo Park is a good example, kept coming across Jews or evidence of Jewish settlements in West Africa. And we know from various sources that there were, black Jewish communities practicing mainstream Judaism from the end of the 15th century onwards through the next century and so on. And as far as the black Jews that I talk about in this book, because they are the starting point for a wider digression or a wider consideration of more racial themes, or rather themes to do with the evolution of the race myth, has got to do with Loango. And there we've got very, very hard, relatively recent evidence, because there was a scientific mission to West Africa taken by the Germans in 1870, 1871, and they left behind huge tomes in German which describe, among other things, this black Jewish community, which was still at that time practicing a form of Judaism. So Loango, where these people came from, was one of the main slave exporting kingdoms in West Africa, and therefore it is entirely likely that some slaves, anyway, I'm not saying it's all slaves, and I certainly don't subscribe to the idea that all African Americans are naturally Israelites and they have replaced the Jews in the Great Dispensation. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that some Jews, both in Central America and in the United States, had every reason to be influenced by the Judaism that we know to have existed in the 18th century when they crossed to the Americas, either from Loango or from points north, certainly Senegal, and further south, possibly Nigeria. We don't know very much about the practice of Judaism in Nigeria at that time, but
this strategy, black Jews, whether they be in America or whether they be in Africa or whether they be in Papua New Guinea, they automatically enter directly into the annals of Western sacred history. They are part of the original players. They are relatives of Jesus, the patriarchs, the prophets, the saints. And it's a wonderful kind of liberation from the trauma of the African condition since the beginning of slavery.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm a so-called white male in my 40s. I'm a Gentile, a heathen. I am an Edomite. I am descended from Esau. I want to confess that, yes, the so-called black people of the Americas and Caribbean, they are God's chosen people. They are the real Jews of the Bible. They are Israel, Judah. They are God's people, and they are divine, holy, and they are, as the Bible say, they're over and above all others, including us. I just learned this over the past year, so I want to apologize for my sins and the sins of my